So it should be Defamiliarization of the Narrative Structure in Zack Snyder's No Steam Iron. A quite fascinating title. So let's see the presentation as well.
Yeah. Just a moment.
All right. So we can see the screen.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, warm afternoon, friends. This is Densingh Daniel from the American College, India. This particular short film, Don't Stream On by Zack Snyder, actually, this short film, it came in 2017. And this short film actually, it's the narrative. The short film focuses on the narrative, how the the visual art, the perceives, and you find the narration to be so unconventional. Regarding the conflicts, like the poiesis, it's an act of creation where you find the language is used to shape meaning and then evoke emotions in a way that actually transcends the ordinary discourse. The same goes with the poiesis in visual arts, where a particular technique like a defamiliarization by Victor Slavsky uh, is used to perceive the film Snow Stream Iron so that the narrative structure, how it flows unconventionally, breaking the form, breaking the structure, and this particular presentation focuses on defamiliarization alone by Victor Slavsky. So, literary critics of various historical periods have emphasized on the formal aspects of art and literature, which tells us that literature it gains a new intensity. That is, it has self-consciousness, and then the cognitive aspects. Everything becomes so representational, and literature does not convey any truth or value, but it communicates what is otherwise incommunicable. So, critics have indicated certain other theories like social alienation or withdrawal from materialistic world. So, through that, you achieve the so-called technique of defamiliarization. So, in this paper, um, the researcher have identified and addressed two important observations. That is, how does defamiliarization enhance the literariness of a story as far as the the formalist are concerned? They focus on literariness of a story, which I'll be discussing later. And then the other is, what is the influence of defamiliarization on narrative sequence? So how the narrative sequence gets distorted so that you find the effect to be very powerful. So we're moving on. What is literariness? Literariness, it's not just limited with literature, but also with film because it reflects the literary qualities, uh, which moves beyond entertainment, and then it focuses on greater thematic, symbolic, and narrative complexities because narrative is complex most of the time. And literariness also involves the use of sophisticated narrative like algebraization and alienation. All these technique, the narrative structure, and then the visual imagery, especially this particular short film, Snow Stream Iron, is um, is rich in the visual imagery. You will find so many images. It keeps on going, and then the the positioning of film as a medium to which is capable of intellectual and emotional depth, it actually transcends its mere role as a spectacle. Let's say as a film, it actually transcends beyond that. And then when literariness is achieved, we should also know what is this defamiliarization. Defamiliarization is actually a literary technique introduced by Victor Slowski, and he says that literariness uh, in uh, in film, it actually brings a kind of effect for the audience whenever the audience view the movie. The usual way of narrating, like let's say the movie or any narration, it has got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, by adopting the technique of defamiliarization, the narrator actually achieves what I would say is a kind of a change that each and every frame it is distorted in the process. Let's say um, the middle becomes the opening of the novel or a movie. The end becomes the middle, and the beginning becomes the end. So that's what, as far as defamiliarization, as Viktor Slavsky says in his essay "Art as a Technique," he brings in that every other narration is distorted in its own way in order to achieve a special sense of aesthetic while the art is being consumed. So, defamiliarization of the narrative structure, where Slavsky says that the work of the meaning in the work of art, it actually diminishes with the literariness of the work. So, to enhance this, the narrator or the creator has to use certain techniques in order to achieve a state of ecstasy in their narration, which comes from unusual point of view, and it actually gives you a different perspective from the traditional view. And then it also helps in blurring the object that serves as the means of knowing it. Let's say M.A. Habib, one of the theorists, he says art creates a vision of the object instead of serving as a means for knowing it. So art, it creates a vision. It creates a vision through which you understand that it's not the usual one, it's a different one. Whatever you have perceived already, it gets blurred, and then what you look, it's actually a new thing from a different perspective. And that's how defamiliarization of the narrative structure is achieved. And you also find the disordering of the narration in an unusual way, which leads to mosaic art structure. Mosaic art structure, you will find a collaboration of so many ideologies within a single frame or a narrative. You will find so many effects within the same one. Um, this is seen in so many recent films, like I can quote one of the Christopher Nolan's movie also talks about this Tenet. It talks about defamiliarization. You will find defamiliarizing of narrative within Tenet also. So the mosaic art structure is then achieved by disordering the narration. And you also find that the formalists, they actually rejected the ideas of imitation, reproduction, and mimesis. The function of art does not lie in representing content. It actually lies in re-presenting. It represents the content, both the subject matter and the literariness. So, defamiliarization of the narrative structure has a specific sense in enhancing the literariness. So, what is the specific sense? The first is deviation from the conventionalized forms of representation. What is the usual way of representing it? The narration gets deviated, and then it is disrupted. It is disrupted. So the automated pattern of representation, the usual way of viewing a thing, the usual way of looking at an object is disrupted, and the same disrupted object is also alienated, so that you find the same familiar object in a unfamiliar way. So these three uh, specific sense actually helps in defamiliarizing the narrative structure. So, how Jack Snyder achieves this feat in his Snow Steam Iron? So, as I said, deviation, disruption, alienation of familiar objects. It leads to narration, but in a different perspective, not the usual way. But at the same time, narration has been widely applied to non-verbal media, especially in films where narration can be a very broad concept. Yes. So there you will find combined effects of all elements, verbal and non-verbal, that generate the narrative as it unfolds. Like the verbal aspects of the movie, the dialogues, and then the sounds. In this particular short film, Snow Stay Mine, it's actually a 4 or 5 minute short film. You can just watch it. You will find that there are no dialogues in the short film. You will won't find any dialogues, but the sounds, the visuals, they all are combined in order to give a different a sense, an alienated sense of looking at the same short film. And then here there's a frame I have just embedded in the PPT. You will find the frame. That's actually how the movie progresses. You will find a single action is deformed into several mini action. Each frame is a mini action. It's not a single action. Together they form a single action. It gives you a new perspective. It's an unusual narrative sequence which elevates to a new perspective. You won't find any beginning or an end, but rather this is how you understand the story. It moves with each frame. So Jack Snyder actually makes use of a mimetic and diegetic way of sequencing the scenes in the short film. So mimesis and diegesis are yet another concepts of Russian formalism, where you find about the imitation and the one being a creation, where the narrator tells the action, the camera actually tells the story to the viewers. Here we find both a mimetic and diegetic way of sequencing the scenes in the short film. And then the author is not always the author of the story, as we all know. Russian formalist claimed that the author is not always the narrator of the story, and therefore you will have an unusual form of narrator. In the short film, you will find that the internal and external focalization, which actually helps in defamiliarizing the usual story. It's actually a normal story if you get to know the story. But the same story, when it is presented in a different way, a different sense, when it has been defamiliarized by various techniques, you will enjoy the same familiar scenes. You will enjoy it, and you will understand that it's from a different view. Every time you watch the movie, you understand that the emotions are different. You find the experience is different. So that's a very strong feat achieved by Jack Snyder in this 5 minute shot. And then um, actually, another important aspect regarding defamiliarization, especially with visual arts, it's the flashback technique. How the narrative moves forward and backward within the film. You will find it opens with the end and ends with the beginning. As I said earlier, as I mentioned earlier, it uses a intrusive frame for strategic reasons, where it deliberately breaks the spell of a narrative. I have taken various shots from the same, same movie, and then in the previous slide, I have arranged it in a different way. You will find a different sense, and in this particular frame also, I have rearranged, and here also you will find a different sense. But the idea is the same, but the perspective differs. That's how this movie progresses. So, what the researcher found here is, so Snowstream IM actually uses a deviation from traditional narrative modes, which disrupts the conventional way of narrating. and therefore the audience experience the literariness of the art to its full extent. So that's about defamiliarizing the narrative structure in Zack Snyder's No Steam. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You
Yeah.
talked about several movies, right? So what other movies would you recommend for us to check out from the perspective that you analyze these movies?
Okay. Um, the first one being Zack Snyder's Snow Steam Iron. A similar structure you will find in Christopher Nolan's Tenet and Inception also. And there are certain Tamil movies I would like to quote. Let's say Duruvangal Padanaru. That's a movie. I'll just probably if I can type it. Duruvangal Padanaru.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can just if you have if you get a chance to watch this movie with English subtitles, definitely you will find how the narrative sequence is defamiliarized. Through that, the same story it achieves a different feat. So that's all about defamiliarization. It is actually limited with the literature, but when it is taken, when it is taken into the accounts of film, movies, you will find the same narrative technique. It gives a different appeal to the audience, and we enjoy that. So I would suggest these movies like Tenet, Inception, and from Tamil, Duruvangal Padanar.